I've always been the kind of person who chases shadows for a living. As a landscape photographer, my world is built on those endless hours of waiting hunched in the damp chill of dawn, breath fogging the lens, listening to the world wake up without me. I've trekked through forgotten valleys in the Appalachian Mountains, camped alone for days in the biting cold of Alaskan tundras, just to capture that one fleeting moment where light and land collide in something raw and eternal. The solitude? It's my fuel. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own heartbeat echoing against the earth, where the only sounds are the distant crack of a branch or the sigh of wind through pines. I used to crave it, that profound isolation where I felt truly alive, invisible, just another whisper in the wilderness. But now, that silence haunts me. It's never empty anymore. It's filled with things that shouldn't be there, faint rustles that mimic footsteps, a metallic tang in the air like old blood, and those sudden, suffocating hushes where even the insects seem to hold their breath. And the aloneness? It's a cruel joke, because I'm never alone, not since that trip. It began 4 months ago, on assignment in the misty hollows of the Great Smoky Mountains. Not the tourist trails with their paved paths and chattering families, but the deep backcountry twisted rhododendron thickets choking ancient trails, fog so thick it clings to your skin like a second layer, and hemlocks so old they creak like weary bones under the weight of time. I was there to photograph the elusive hellbender salamanders, those slimy giants lurking in the cold streams, symbols of a fading wild. The first weeks were pure bliss. I'd wade into icy waters at twilight, the current tugging at my boots like invisible hands, the air heavy with the earthy rot of decaying leaves and the sharp bite of pine resin. One foggy dusk, I nailed it, a massive hellbender gliding through a crystal-clear pool, its mottled skin glowing under the last rays of sun filtering through the canopy. The water's surface rippled like shattered glass, and I fired off shots, my pulse racing with that addictive rush, the click of the shutter slicing through the hush like a heartbeat. That night, back in my tent, the rain pattering softly on the nylon like impatient fingers, I uploaded the images to my tablet. There it was, the perfect frame. The salamander's eyes gleamed with ancient cunning, the background a dreamy blur of mossy greens and shadowed depths, flawless, except for the streak. In the lower left corner, a faint, horizontal haze of pale gray, like a smudged fingerprint on the lens. It was blurry, ethereal, almost like steam rising from nowhere. I zoomed in, frowning. Could have been moisture from the fog, but my gear was sealed tight. I checked the other shots. Same streak, identical position, defying the shifting angles. It smelled off, literally, a faint, acrid whiff in my tent, like burnt hair that vanished when I blinked. I shrugged it off as a glitch, wiped my lenses obsessively, and crawled into my sleeping bag, the distant hoot of an owl lulling me to uneasy sleep. A few days later, it happened again. I was perched on a rocky outcrop at midnight, capturing bioluminescent fungi glowing like forgotten stars on rotting logs. The air was thick with the musty scent of wet earth, and the only sound was the occasional drip of condensation from overhanging branches, each one echoing like a whisper in an empty room. Hundreds of exposures, the fungi pulsing with an otherworldly light. Reviewing them by the glow of my headlamp, the streak was back bolder now, a wavering line that seemed to pulse in sync with my breathing. Different lens, different time, but always lurking at the edge, mocking me. Obsession crept in slow, like the fog rolling down the ridges. I tore apart my camera, ran tests in the dim light of my tent, photographing blank tarps and my own shadowed hands. Nothing. Gear was pristine. But that metallic tang returned whenever I stared at the images too long, and the silences grew heavier, broken by faint scratches outside, like nails dragging over bark. I had to recreate it. Back to the stream, tripod planted in the mud, eye glued to the viewfinder as the twilight deepened. The water gurgled softly, but then it shifted, a subtle wrongness, like the stream's flow reversing for a split second. And that prickle started, hairs on my arms standing, a chill slithering up my spine, the unmistakable weight of eyes on me. Not from ahead, but from the left. Peripheral, I froze, breath shallow, the forest's murmurs fading to a dead quiet. No wind, no drips, just my pulse thundering. I didn't turn my head, but my eyes strained sideways. Their elongated, translucent form, like a veil of mist twisted into limbs, dangling from a low-hanging branch over the water. Not upside down, but sideways, contorted, its edges flickering like heat off asphalt. Humanoid, but wrong too long, too fluid, as if poured from smoke. The instant my mind latched on, I whipped my gaze over. Gone. Just the branch, swaying gently, the fog swirling innocently. The watched feeling evaporated, but my mouth tasted like copper, and a low hum buzzed in my ears, fading like a dying echo. I packed up fast, heart slamming, the trail back feeling longer, branches snagging my clothes like grasping fingers. Exhaustion, I told myself. Hallucinations from too many solo nights. But deep down, that electric fear sparked something was out there, toying with me. I needed answers. Drove to a tiny trailhead outpost, a weathered shack smelling of wood smoke and stale coffee, manned by a grizzled old-timer and his sharp-eyed niece. I bought some trail mix I didn't want. Chatted about the weather, the fog that never lifts, the way sounds distort in these hollows. Then, casual as I could, ever. Notice weird stuff out here? Like shapes in the mist, just out of sight? They traded glances, the kind that speaks volumes, in silence. The old man set down his mug, steam curling like ghostly fingers. The sideways lurker, he muttered, eyes narrowing. Yeah, we know it. Relief hit like ice water, chased by dread. Not crazy, but real. What is it? My voice cracked, the outpost suddenly too dim, the fire's crackle too loud. He leaned in, voice gravelly. Old as these mountains, maybe older. A glitch in the world like a shadow that got unstuck. Hangs at the edges, watches. But here's the deal. You don't watch back. See it sidelong? Act like it's nothing? Feel it stare? Keep moving. Acknowledge it. Chase it. And it claims you. Claims how? The niece's face paled, the room's warmth fleeing. No one pushes that far, she said tightly. Folks who do, they vanish into the fog. Or come back changed eyes milky, babbling about blind spots that grow. I left shaken, their words echoing like distant thunder. The streak in my photos? It matched a hazy horizontal intrusion, like a lurker slipping in sideways. My camera had caught what my eyes denied. But I'm a photographer. Capturing the unseen is my obsession. Their warning? It ignited something reckless in me. A challenge I couldn't ignore. I dove back in, method shifted. No more wildlife hunts, just waiting for that prickle. The air turning thick with that burnt hair stench, the sounds warping into faint, indecipherable murmurs, like voices just below hearing. When it came, I'd aim the lens not straight, but askew, snapping the periphery. The images chilled me to the core. The streak thickened, morphing into a jagged rift of ashen light, edges fraying like torn fabric, pulsing as if alive. Brighter with each shot, angrier, the murmurs growing to whispers garbled words I couldn't catch, slithering through the trees. I lost myself to it. Food tasted like ash? Sleep came in fits, haunted by dreams of endless fog and sideways stares. Memory cards filled with these abominations. The lurker's form resolving just a bit more limbs like twisted vines, a face hinted at but blank. Then, in a fog-choked ravine, the presence crushed down, whispers turning to hisses, the air reeking of decay. I fired the shutter. The screen? Pure gray void. Every shot after, gray. It had flooded my camera, drowned it in its essence. Sanity should have screamed stop. But no, I went bare-eyed. Stalked the trails, waiting for the watch, then strained to hold it in the corner, forcing focus without turning. The whispers loudened, syllables forming nonsense that tugged at my mind. And then the haze appeared in my own sight, a tiny, drifting veil in my left eye, gray and insistent. Each hunt, it swelled, milky tendrils spreading like ink in water, the whispers clarifying into pleas. See me ... See. Terror crashed in. It existed only at the edges. Forcing it central broke some cosmic law, and its retaliation? Stealing my vision, piece by piece, turning me into its blind vessel. A predatory void, feeding on my gaze. I bolted, vision blurring at the edges, whispers chasing like laughter, roots tripping me into mud that smelled of graves. Made it to my Jeep, fled those mountains, the fog swallowing them in the rearview. 2 months now. The haze hasn't shrunk. Specialists poke and scan, declare my eyes flawless, blame psychosomatic trauma. I burned everything. Drives, prints. Even the camera watched them melt in a backyard pit, the smoke twisting sideways, whispers crackling in the flames. Relief? Fleeting, it followed. It's here, in my apartment, in the city hum that never quite drowns the silences. That prickle returns at odd hours, the metallic taste, the sudden quiet where traffic fades to nothing. If I let my guard down, there it is. The sideways form, dangling from a ceiling beam or a street lamp outside, shimmering just beyond direct sight. Whispers now clear, names, secrets, urges I fight to ignore. I live in denial, eyes locked forward, never darting, because one glance and the haze blooms anew. Not much sight left to give. But here's the twist that keeps me up, heart pounding in the dark. Last night, as I typed this, the whispers shifted. Not to me anymore, to you. It knows I'm sharing. It's slipping through these words, waiting at the edge of your screen, your vision. Feel that prickle yet? Don't look. For God's sake, don't. I never got to know my maternal great-uncle Elias all that well. My folks' families were always pretty close. Big holiday dinners, summer barbecues where everyone laughed too loud and hugged too hard, but he was the odd one out, living like a ghost in his own world. Never married, no kids, just him and his obsession with stargazing, or so my mom used to say. He'd venture out only for essentials, like clockwork every Thursday to the corner market. I'd visited his creaky old cabin maybe once as a kid, and all I remembered was the musty scent of damp wood, and how he barely glanced at me, nothing like the warm chatter from my grandpa. When he passed a couple years ago, the funeral felt more like an obligation than a goodbye. Mom and Dad were gone by then, leaving me as the last thread in his tangled family line. So it was up to my aunt and me to sort his estate. The valuables got divvied up quick, but the junk? That ended up in dusty crates shoved into attics and garages. Lately, my aunt's been fixing up her place, turning the old garage into a home office, and she roped me in to help clear the clutter. What I unearthed in there, ... It's been clawing at my thoughts ever since, like shadows creeping in at the edges of my vision. I have to tell someone, or it'll swallow me whole. I showed up early that morning, key in hand since my aunt was stuck at work. The garage was a dim cavern, lit only by a single bulb swinging lazily from the rafters, casting long, jittery shadows that danced like unseen fingers across the concrete floor. For hours I sifted through the mess, rusted tools that hummed faintly with the echo of past use, faded board games from my childhood that brought a bittersweet smile, even an old bicycle tire that still smelled faintly of summer rain and rubber. The air was thick with dust, tickling my throat, and every creak of the floorboards under my feet amplified in the silence, making me glance over my shoulder more than once. As I neared the back corner, shrouded in cobwebs that brushed my skin like ghostly whispers, I spotted a small wooden crate labeled with Elias's name in faded ink. It was heavier than it looked, groaning as I dragged it into the light upstairs. With time to kill before my aunt got home, curiosity got the better of me. Elias had been such a recluse, why keep anything at all? Inside, nestled under a layer of yellowed newspaper, was a hefty leather-bound scrapbook titled Kin. My heart quickened with a mix of warmth and intrigue. Flipping through family history sounded like a cozy way to pass the time. But as I cracked it open, a chill slithered down my spine. The pages were filled with snapshots of reunions, weddings, lazy afternoons, and park's ordinary joys. Yet in every single one, there was a void. Not a blur or a crop, but an unmistakable absence. A gap in a group hug where arms floated awkwardly in midair, a vacant chair at a feast with a half-eaten slice of cake cooling untouched, steam curling up like a fading breath. The photos were crisp, colors vivid, but that emptiness. It stared back, pulling at something deep inside me. I shrugged it off at first. Maybe Elias had edited them, some petty grudge airbrushed out with old-school darkroom tricks. But he wasn't tech-savvy. The man still used a rotary phone. And scanning closer, I saw everyone I knew. Mom beaming at a birthday, Dad mid-laugh at a grill-out. No one missing that I could pinpoint. When my aunt finally walked in, keys jangling like distant chains, I showed her. She frowned, the lines on her face deepening in the dim kitchen light, and muttered it had to be her estranged brother, the one who'd run off young. But would he be in every photo? She brushed it off, insisting we focus on the rest of the sorting, her voice tight, like she was swallowing words she didn't want to say. That night, the scrapbook haunted me. I took it home, fabricating some excuse about scanning the pics for digital backups. Alone in my living room, under the harsh glow of a desk lamp that buzzed like angry insects, I pored over it. The absences grew more unnerving. In shots where I appeared as a wide-eyed kid, my face was twisted in raw terror, eyes locked on those empty spaces as if something monstrous lurked there. I reached out to relatives, cousins, distant uncles texting photos of the pages. Their responses clashed like thunder. One swore it was a disowned aunt, another a forgotten step-cousin. They recalled the events crystal clear, the salty tang of ocean air at a beach trip, the crackle of fireworks on the 4th, but no agreement on who was erased. Whispers of doubt crept in, and sleep evaded me, replaced by dreams where I chased a faceless figure through misty fields, their laughter echoing like wind through hollow bones. Desperate, I rummaged through my own storage shed the next day, the air heavy with mildew and the faint, acrid bite of old paint. Buried under tarps and forgotten holiday lights, I found another crate with Elias's name. As I pried it open, a wave of stench hit me, rotting leaves mixed with bitter licorice, so potent it burned my nostrils and dredged up buried horrors. I gagged, memories flooding back like icy water. This was from when I was 9, back in our quiet suburb. My buddy Jax and I were inseparable, always stirring up mischief. We'd play flashlight tag in the woods behind his house, the kind that edges into real fear when the night deepens. Jax lived on the far side of town, past overgrown fields where crickets chirped in eerie unison. The path took me by this run-down shack, its windows like black eyes, always exhaling that same foul, odor-rotting leaves and licorice that made my stomach twist. One stormy afternoon, Jax and I, hyped on stolen sodas, dared each other to sneak up and peek inside. Thunder rumbled low, vibrating the ground, and rain pattered like fingertips on leaves. I lost the coin flip, so I crept to the door, heart pounding in my ears. Before my knuckles even grazed the wood, it swung open with a groan that silenced the storm. There stood a woman, gaunt and pale, with stringy hair framing eyes too wide, too shadowed, like voids sucking in the light. She wore a faded dress that hung like a shroud, and her lips cracked with dried blood, as if she'd been gnawing at them. "You shouldn't have come knocking," she rasped, her voice a dry whisper that slithered into my skull. Behind her, the shack was a nightmare. Flickering candlelight revealed walls scrawled with twisting symbols, a clock ticking backward, and the faint hum of what sounded like an old radio playing Hotel California on loop, the Eagles' melody warped and distant. The air buzzed, not with electricity, but actual flies orbiting her head like a crown. I stammered an excuse, but she leaned in, her breath reeking of spoiled milk, and tapped my chest with bony fingers. "Curious little shadow, aren't you? Peeking where you don't belong." Then she shrieked a piercing wail that shattered the silence, spittle flying as thunder cracked overhead. A fly landed on her cheek, vanishing into her ear without a flinch. "Tell a soul, and I'll slip into your dreams, unravel you thread by thread." Terror soaked me. I bolted, rain lashing my face, Jack's already gone. I spilled it all to my parents that night, their faces paling under the kitchen fluorescence. They called the cops, reporting a squatter threatening a child. But the shack? Vacant, abandoned for years. No sign of her. The patrols turned up nothing, and I buried it deep, the memory fading like fog at dawn. Back to Elias's crate. Beneath the wrap lay a cassette tape, a single faded Polaroid, a telescope with lenses smeared opaque in ink, and a sketch pad covered in constellations. The pad wasn't stars, it was pages of interlocking runes, swirling like mad whispers on paper. The telescope? Useless for viewing, like staring into abyss. Dementia, I thought, but the smell lingered, mocking me. The Polaroid showed me as a kid with my aunt and the Hargroves' Mr. Hargrove, Dad's old fishing buddy, and his daughter Lila. We looked about 8, grinning, at a lake picnic. Mr. Hargrove drowned not long after, boat accident. Lila vanished into foster care, lost to time. I hooked up my ancient cassette player, the motor whirring like labored breaths. The tape crackled to life. A family barbecue from the scrapbook, laughter mingling with birdsong and the sizzle of burgers. And there she was, the woman from the shack, mingling, normal, in jeans and a tee, no blood, no madness. Chills raced over my skin. Was her name Ilara? It echoed in my mind like a half-forgotten tune. The camera swung to a sobbing girl, Lila, terrified then back, and the woman was gone. No reaction. The party flowed on. I shared clips with family. Chaos ensued. My aunt stormed out mid-dinner, face twisted in rage, ignoring my pleas. Cousins ghosted me, one blocking me outright. Only Cousin Ray called back, denying the woman, but mentioning Lila escaped foster care young, never found. He gave me the agency's name before hanging up abruptly, line going dead with a click that echoed too long. Calling the agency, I endured hold music, The Long Run by the Eagles, tinny and looping, stirring unease in my gut. A raspy voice finally answered. Dredging partial records. A note from 2003 about Lila, imaginary companion, she whispered to in the dark, shadows moving when no one watched. Then, a month later, runaway, no trace, case closed. Replaying the tape days later, heart hammering in the quiet of my room, the woman had vanished. Layla played carefree. Family now denied the Hargroves entirely. Who? Never heard of M. Even Ray claimed Dad was his fishing pal, sending pics where Dad held the trophy fish. Reality was unraveling, threads pulling loose, and I felt it in my bones, a creeping fog erasing edges of my mind. I tried to stop, returned the scrapbook, vowed normalcy. But this morning, on my knitstand, sat a fresh snapshot. A young girl huddled in a dim attic, eyes hollow with despair that pierced my soul. Beside it, a vial of shimmering ink, black as the void. And now, as I sit here, the whispers start faint at first, like wind through cracks, murmuring my name. They're getting louder, closer, and I wonder, am I next to fade?